Well, there are so many risks, and a global survey of senior executives found that 91% felt that it was very important to actually know who they were doing business with. And the reason for that is that anonymous companies are being used by drugs money launderers, people and arms traffickers, terrorism, organised crime, for ways to conceal and move money, but they're also being used by criminals, tricksters, fraudsters, who are scamming small investors out of their money, and all sorts of other small-scale frauds as well. Well, it's on two levels. The best way to really tackle the anonymous ownership of companies is on two levels. One is that there needs to be a massive change in what is considered acceptable business practice. And currently, secrecy in business, this misuse of anonymous companies, is a sort of accepted business practice. That needs to change, and I think we're starting to see that. And the other thing that needs to change, and is already underway, is that governments need to take responsibility for the companies that are set up in their domain. And so with the fifth EU anti-money laundering directive of December last year, that's going to now be a requirement for all countries across Europe to have registers of the beneficial owners of companies that are publicly accessible. And there's going to be a few issues about potential paywalls and costs, but it's a huge step forward. And it brings to 35 now countries across the world that are setting up public ownership databases. Now, the key thing, though, is that for these to be effective, they have to be able to be cross-referenced. There needs to be open data, they need to be searchable and cross-referenced so that people, whether it's law enforcement or citizens trying to hold their governments to account, can do the research to track the companies across borders. Well, I think that this is already starting to change, and it needs to change country by country. It's not about setting up some huge globalized structure. Governments need to take responsibility for the companies that are operating in their countries. And so I think we're seeing a big development towards that with the fifth EU anti-money laundering directive. And in the UK, there's the world first set up in 2016 of a register of persons of significant control, which again, it's a work in progress, and there are things that need to be sorted out with it, but it's a very good intent. So in terms of the international dimension on this, the G20 has started to speak out about the problems caused by anonymous companies and the need to take action, but it needs to do a lot more. It really needs to actually get active and develop that piece of work. And we just need to see governments globally getting behind this legislative issue. So many interesting takeaways from this summit. I thought Rani's talk about the real human dimension of having been a child that was trafficked was horrifying and incredibly powerful, very strong talk and fascinating. And Misha Glenny's talk about be ready to think about how you as an organisation and as an entity handle cyber risk and what's going on out there in the dark web, that was fascinating too.